Welcome, everyone. I'm Robin Beliveau, the Outreach and Training Specialist at the Brunswick County Board of Elections. Thank you for joining me for our sixth seminar in our election education series. This seminar is all about preparing to vote. Topics covered will be the upcoming municipal election, how to check your voter registration, including finding your home precinct and sample ballot, knowing and understanding your dates and deadlines, early voting, voter photo ID, provisional ballots, candidate and party promotion, and election day. The upcoming election on Tuesday, November 7th is a municipal election, which elects governing officials in cities, villages, and towns. Brunswick County has 19 municipalities, 2 sanitary districts, and 1 hospital board. If you live in an unincorporated area and do not fall under one of the sanitary or hospital districts, you will not have a ballot to vote on in this election. The best way to determine if you have a ballot to vote on is to check your voter registration. We recommend that voters check their registration record approximately 5 weeks prior to each election. Voters should use the state voter lookup tool, which can be found on the main page of our website or on the North Carolina State Board of Elections website. The web address is on your screen. Voters input their name, year of birth, and county, then click Search. The next page that will appear will show a list of all voters with that name. The voters should click on the name in blue that corresponds to them. This will open the voter's registration and provide the voter with their current registration information, including name and address, voter details such as status, party, demographics, and registration date, and jurisdiction information such as precinct, Congress, Senate, and House districts, and municipality. As the voter scrolls down the page, the voter will see additional information, such as polling precinct. This is the precinct a voter should go to on election day to ensure they receive their correct ballot style. If a voter does not go to their correct precinct on election day, they may not receive a ballot with eligible contests. As the voter continues to scroll, they can see if they have a ballot for this election. If a voter has a ballot, there will be a link to a sample ballot. Click on the link to see the ballot for that election. If a voter does not have a ballot, it will state no eligible ballots. There are several dates and deadlines that can impact voters in an election. For example, ballot packets for absentee by mail voters are available as of October 6th. Voters must request an absentee by mail ballot through official channels. For more information on how to vote by absentee, please refer to our absentee by mail presentation on our YouTube channel at Brunswick NC Votes. To vote in a specific jurisdiction, voters must reside at their address for at least 30 days. Voters who have moved into a jurisdiction after October 8th will need to vote under their previous address and can complete a voter registration form to update their address for the next election. And if a voter needs to register, they must register at least 25 days in advance of the election. Changes to a voter's registration must also be made by that registration deadline. This includes changes to party and demographic information. If a voter misses the deadline, they can wait until election day is over and then submit the changes for the following election. Some changes, such as a name change, residential address change, or mailing address change, can be made when presenting to vote. One-stop early voting begins Thursday, October 19th, and ends Saturday, November 4th. Voters can request an absentee by mail ballot through Tuesday, October 31st. Voters can hand deliver their absentee by mail ballots to the precinct during early voting or by 5 p.m. at the Board of Elections office. Absentee by mail ballots that have been mailed must be postmarked by Tuesday, November 7th and delivered to the Board of Elections office by November 13th to qualify. For this election, there will be one early voting location at the Government Center at the Cooperative Extension Building N here in Bolivia. Again, those dates are Thursday, October 19th and through Saturday, November 4th. The site will be open Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. until 5 p.m. each day. The only weekend date will be the last Saturday, November 4th, from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. There will be multiple sites around the county open for early voting in the 2024 primary and general elections next year. Now, during early voting, voters who missed the voter registration deadline can participate in same-day registration. The voter will need to provide proof of residency, and the document provided cannot be more than 90 days old. As I mentioned before, absentee by mail ballots can be dropped off at the early voting site. Photo ID is now required for voting in North Carolina. For most voters, this will mean showing their North Carolina driver's license. Other ID options that voters can use are a U.S. passport or U.S. passport card, a state ID from the Department of Motor Vehicles, which can be obtained for free from the DMV. Voters will need to follow the DMV identity requirements. A North Carolina voter photo ID card, which can be obtained for free from the County Board of Elections, a college or university student ID that has been approved by the Board of Elections, the State Board of Elections, or an employee ID from a state or local government or charter school that has been approved by the State Board of Elections. Voters who have registered to vote in North Carolina within 90 days of the election are allowed to present a driver's license or non-operator's ID from another state, District of Columbia, or U.S. territory. In addition to providing an acceptable form of ID, the ID will need to meet specific expiration requirements. For voters under 65, the IDs I recently mentioned will need to be unexpired or expired 1 year or less in order to be accepted. For voters 65 and older, their ID can be expired as long as it did not expire prior to their 65th birthday. There are 3 additional types of photo ID that will be accepted at the polls, regardless of whether the ID contains an expiration date. That is a military issued or a federally issued military or veterans ID card, a state or federally recognized tribal enrollment card, or an ID card for public assistance program that was issued by North Carolina or a U.S. government agency. Upon check-in during early voting or on election day, the poll worker at the check-in station will ask for a voter's name followed by their address. Upon finding the voter in the voter registration database, the poll worker will confirm their name and address and then ask the voter for a photo ID. Please do not present ID until asked to do so. The poll worker will confirm the voter bears a reasonable resemblance to the photo on the ID. They are confirming that the photo looks similar enough to the voter that the voter is the person on the ID. Poll workers are required by law to bear in mind that they have to recognize there would be several reasons a person's appearance may have changed. They will also be verifying the name on the ID bears a reasonable resemblance and is substantially equivalent to the name in the voter registration database. Now, if reasonable resemblance cannot be established by the check-in official, the voter will be sent to the help desk, at which point the chief judge and 2 judges for that polling location will meet and conduct a challenge hearing. As a reminder, the chief judge and 2 judges comprise a bipartisan team. The decision that there is no reasonable resemblance must be unanimous. If it is not, then the voter will be provided with their regular ballot that they will be able to put through the tabulator. If the decision is unanimous that there is no reasonable resemblance, then the voter will be offered a provisional ballot with instructions on how to satisfy the photo ID requirements prior to the county canvass. There are specific instances where a voter will not be required to show a photo ID to vote. Voters who have a religious objection to being photographed, they were a victim of a natural disaster within 100 days of the election as declared by the governor of North Carolina or the president of the United States, or they have a reasonable impediment preventing them from showing an ID. In these instances, a voter will be offered a provisional ballot. In addition, voters who do not qualify for any of these exceptions, but do not also have a photo ID at the time of voting, will be offered a provisional ballot. After voting, an acceptable photo ID will need to be brought to the Board of Elections office by the close of business the day before the county canvass, which for this election is Thursday, November 16th at 5 p.m. The photo ID will be evaluated the same way a voter's ID is evaluated at the polling locations. It is important to note that whether or not a voter has the photo ID, they will not be turned away and have the opportunity to vote. That vote just may be provisional. If you vote at home through absentee by mail, you will be asked to include a photocopy of one of the acceptable forms of ID or a completed photo ID exception form for absentee voting with your ballot. It is important to follow the detailed instructions that are included with an absentee ballot in the absentee ballot packet. An overview of the instructions can be found on the flap of the ballot envelope. The other side of the ballot envelope is the receptacle in which the voter will place the photocopy of the voter's acceptable form of ID or a completed photo ID exception form for absentee voting. In addition, the voter's signature and copy of photo ID or completed photo ID exception form for absentee voting, an absentee by mail voter will need either 2 witnesses or a notary to complete their section on the absentee ballot envelope. Now, voters can obtain a free voter photo ID card at the Board of Elections office. No form of identification is required by the voter, but they are required to complete a form that includes their name, address, and social security number and their signature. That will be used to look up the voter in the voter registration database. As long as they are in the voter registration base as an active or inactive voter, then their photo will be taken and ID will be printed while they wait. Voters can obtain this free voter photo ID at the Board of Elections office through November 4th, and then after November 7th. Now, voters who cannot be checked in by regular means are always offered the opportunity to go to the help desk and vote provisionally. And this is not just related to voter photo ID. There could be several other reasons that a voter might be offered a provisional ballot, such as a voter presenting to a precinct that is not their home precinct. They present and they don't have an eligible ballot, but feel they should be voting on a ballot, or for any other reason, a voter cannot be checked in. Provisional voting ensures every eligible voter gets the opportunity to vote. Each election, many provisional ballots are accepted as eligible. Voters who do not satisfy the voter photo ID requirements, as I mentioned before, will be given the opportunity to vote a provisional ballot. Provisional ballots are sealed in a special envelope and brought back to the Board of Elections office on election night once the polls close. They are researched and reviewed to determine if they are eligible to be counted during the canvass process. Voters are always provided with instructions and a personal PIN number when they vote provisionally. They can find out if their ballot was accepted, partially accepted, or not accepted once canvass is complete. Now, voters are permitted to wear party and candidate promotional clothing and accessories when they're in the process of voting. Voters are not permitted to electioneer while voting or provide promotional materials to other voters in the voting enclosure, even if they themselves are in the process of voting. Electioneers are required to stay outside of the voting enclosure, which includes a buffer zone outside the precinct. The buffer zone extends to curbside voters, which means electioneers should not approach cars that are parked in curbside spots. Election Day this year is on Tuesday, November 7th. The polls will be open from 6:30 a.m. until 7:30 p.m. and voters who are in line at 7:30 p.m. will be permitted to vote. At that time, the chief judge of the precinct will go to the back of the line and take down the name of the last voter. They will place a poll worker at the end of the line to let latecomers know the polls are closed. In order for a voter to obtain their correct ballot, the voter must go to their home precinct. It is especially important in a municipal election. If a voter is at the incorrect precinct, the ballot they vote on may not have any eligible contests on it. For example, a voter who lives in Ocean Isle shows up at a precinct in Charlotte. The ballot at the Charlotte precinct will not have the contest for Ocean Isle Beach mayor or any other Ocean Isle Beach elections on it. Write-in for Ocean Isle Beach mayor on the Charlotte ballot will not be considered an acceptable write-in. Now, you should expect to provide your name and residential address when presenting to vote. It is part of the general statutes in North Carolina, and there will be signage at all the precincts reminding you. Precinct officials will then review your name and address with you, and then they will ask for an acceptable photo ID. Photo ID is not used to look up the voter. It is used to confirm the voter. I hope you enjoyed tonight's seminar and that you have a better understanding of our voting procedures and preparing to vote. Before we conclude, I'd like to mention that our last election education seminar is on December 7th, and it is certifying an election. This is where voters can learn about the process of certifying an election. We'll talk about what is canvass, voter history, provisional ballots, and our sample audit count. Now, if you have a topic that you would like us to cover next year, please submit your request by scanning the QR code or through the FAQ form on the homepage of our website. And if you missed our first 5 seminars, you can find the recordings on our YouTube channel at Brunswick NC Votes. We are currently in the midst of training for the municipal election. If you are interested in working the 2024 primary, then we have 3 orientations coming up after this election. They are Wednesday, November 29th at 10 a.m. and Wednesday, December 6th at 6 p.m. in person at the Commissioner's Chambers here at the Government Center. If you're unable to come in person, then you can participate in an orientation online through Zoom on Wednesday, December 13th at 6 p.m. Whichever session you decide to go to, registration is required, and those links are on the page. We appreciate everybody's time tonight. Thank you very much for watching our seminar video. Now, this slide has our contact information, website, and social media handles. I encourage you to follow our sites, as this is where we post a lot of important information for elections. We continue to work on expanding our social media presence because we want to provide accurate and timely information to our community, and it's a great way to get information out quickly. Please tell your family and friends and neighbors to follow us and to check out the educational seminar videos on our YouTube channel. Now, if you have any questions at any time after this meeting, please go to our website and complete the submission form so we can get them answered for you. Thank you so much for watching.